Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.
I'm Al Bledsoe, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 1108.
I'm Ron Chappell, chaplain for Vietnam Veterans Chapter 777 here in the city of Richmond, and our guest is no stranger to us. Pete, you want to tell them who you are?
Good morning. Pete McDaniel, Wayne County Veteran Service Officer.
All right.
Okay, so it's always good to have you with us, Pete, sometimes on the last minute. But let's get into this thing with the Navy guys and the blue water stuff, and maybe you can go over some of that with us.
Okay, good. Where we're at right now is that President Trump signed into law this year that the Blue Water Navy veterans would be covered under the presumptives. And what that means is in the past decade, the majority of these Navy veterans and Coast Guard veterans have been denied VA benefits for presumptives and conditions associated with Agent Orange exposure. What we've got now is, starting January 1 of 2020, the VA is going to start recognizing these associated illnesses with exposure to Agent Orange, and therefore all these veterans are now going to be eligible for a multitude of VA benefits. It's really a good deal. It's exciting. It's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people that have suffered a lot of medical conditions due to this exposure, but never were recognized due to they was off the coast of Vietnam and not necessarily the boots on ground that the VA says you have to be to qualify for a presumptive.
Well, what about folks who have passed on from some of these presumptive illnesses? Would their families be able to come to VA and ask for some type of...
They will. There will be benefits available to the family members that will make them eligible, just as if your families are eligible for benefits in the event that you pass away from these service-connected injuries. There's not a lot of information out on that yet. It's all kind of unfolding as we're speaking, and starting January 1 is when it's all going to roll out. What we want to do is make sure that we let pretty much every family member of a Navy veteran and the veterans themselves and Coast Guard be aware that, hey, you may now be eligible for these benefits. They estimate it's going to be between 50 to 90,000 veterans. And what we're doing, we're starting the process of initiating the claims, getting them sent to our regional office, and come effective January 1, they're going to start processing these. And it's going to be, it's going to take some time. It's going to be an influx of claims within the VA system, and it's going to make things cumbersome. But they're really getting prepared for it, and I think they're going to have a good start at getting these claims decided and getting these veterans retroactive pay if they're entitled to. So,
tell me something, because I've always wondered that. And you talk about the Blue Water veterans, the Navy guys. Explain that just a little bit.
Blue Water veterans.
Is that their nickname?
No, it's just a definition given to, like I stated earlier, Naval and Coast Guard veterans that were aboard naval ships with outside the limits of the 12 nautical miles. Or within, I'm sorry. Correct. Right. They stayed within that 12 nautical miles, and they pretty much would come within close proximity of the coastline, but they never stepped boot on ground. Now, we have our brown water Navy veterans that took the small gunships up and down and the supply vessels, and they, in return, since they was that close and they're identified as brown water veterans, which is distinct between the inland waterways, it gives them the presumptive that they was exposed due to air carryover with wind currents and the herbicide being sprayed within the area they was. So they've been entitled for some time. but the Blue Water veterans have not. And there's been several case laws going on where they have tried to get them connected, and it's been shot down and not passed, but now pretty much everything has a line. There was a case over the past several years that a veteran had won, stating in fact that yes, he was entitled to these benefits, which started this whole process.
So somebody finally realized that the mist from Agent Orange had no barriers.
Correct.
That it would, you know.
They finally concluded that, you know what, there is a presumptive that these veterans were exposed.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you want to interpret it,
Right.
they got their exposure. They're saying these veterans are sharing similar diseases and illnesses that these boots on ground veterans had at alarming numbers.
Yeah.
So something's going on somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So fortunately, somebody finally said, hey, let's revisit this, and they finally got it passed into law.
Yeah.
You know,
And that
when
was
they
June of this year.
For lack of being stupid, though, how could you be that close to all of that stuff going on, Agent Orange and all that stuff? Because, I mean, it killed everything in sight.
In the
and
jungle,
then
man.
because these guys were 10 mile out or whatever the thing is,
12 miles.
all of a sudden they can't be covered.
But you
got
can
all
see
this
that
block
stuff.
of
You could
Navy
see that
vets.
stuff, man.
Well, I know.
I remember seeing them, Air Force coming in and spraying the foliage, the area, and you could see the cloud, the mist of that stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And they would tell us we were not in harm's way because we might be a mile or two down the road, okay. But the truth be known, I always argued.
The next day you had to march down there.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
And that's the interesting fact.
That's right.
And it's
Well, it came this way. It came
it's
this
going
way.
to be exciting to see how many veterans that have had these issues go on. And I have had many. I can't even begin to count how many Blue Navy, Blue Water veterans came into my office, and it's sorry. There was
several,
nothing I could do because the law was clear. If you was not boots on ground, you're not entitled to these benefits. Well, now they are. And we're about to get a good start on them, and hopefully, but the word has got to get out there, like all VA benefits. People's lack of knowledge and the fact that this benefit exists, it's veterans go without.
Yeah.
So is that too? See, most Vietnam guys, you have to face the reality is most of us are 70 plus. So the government all of a sudden crashes it at a time in their life when they're near the end of it anyway.
Right.
That's disgusting to me.
Well, it's sad that it took them this long to get
Yeah,
it.
to
But
do
on
that.
in the same token, we want to say, now let's get something going for them,
About time, let's
and
do
let's
something.
let their widows have benefits that they was entitled to but never got.
Yeah.
And that's the upside of this, because now there's going to be a lot of widows out there that are going to be able to come into the office and say, hey, this is what my husband passed of. It is a presumptive of Agent Orange.
Right.
And is there anything out there for me?
Right.
And we're going to take it and we're going to try.
Right.
And we're going to see what we can do. And it will benefit a lot of dependents.
Man, I tell you what, brothers and sisters out there, fellow service members, I hope you have got a handle on your records. Get your records together. Wherever you were serviced at, get it all together. I just happened to, talking to our veteran service officer, who advised me that I needed to get some stuff together, and I went out to, had a lot of work done out at Wright Pat. I went out there, and they told me it's going to take 28 days, but they're going to put it all on the CD, and I'm going to take it down here, I'm going to give it to Pete and let him run with it. So.
And we're going to make copies. And that's a good thing to also share that, hey, if you're wanting to get these old medical records you have out there, you can come to the office and we can apply to the National Archives through the NPRC and pull your service medical records on any specific dates you want. And it's a good thing sometimes to review prior to filing a claim. The good thing is that the VA, they have access to more documents than I do or what my office could ever dream of reaching out and getting. They have resources out there that really does a great job of researching stuff and finding documentation for veterans. But if we've got a good timeline to give them, more than likely they're going to find it.
Right.
Now, there are cases where records are lost.
Right.
I've had that happen many times. Veterans say, hey, I know I had this injury and I was in the hospital or I was an outpatient and I've still got that same problem with my back or my knee or whatever the case may be, and we've submitted the claim and sent it off, and something comes back that says no records were found indicating this. And when that happens, it's very disheartening to the veteran. But once again, they're lost.
Right.
Now, we have different avenues that we approach at that point to try to gather something through either civilian medical or we'll contact that base directly, that base hospital, and see if they have anything archived. But the VA should have all that, and rarely does it come up that we find anything that the VA couldn't find, but we do try.
Yeah.
Are you thinking that the VA will approve these Navy guys? We have a lot of Navy guys in Wayne County.
Oh yeah. It is
Is the government just throwing it out there so they can say, well, we offered it to you, but you didn't qualify? You know how that goes.
You're right, and it's not going to head down that path at all. It's going to be just as if you guys are both aware of presumptives within the VA medical system. It's ischemic heart, diabetes, certain types of cancers, neuropathy, all secondary conditions associated with this list. And I would advise everybody to get on the website to the VA and just look up VA presumptives for Agent Orange, and it will give you a laundry list of diseases. Yes, it will. Now, if you've got any of them diseases and you are classified as a blue water veteran, the VA says, hey, all we have to have is a doctor state the fact that you are diagnosed with this, and therefore we don't question it. We assume that it was due to your exposure. Here you go. Let us start taking care of the medical
do we have a
expenses on this.
timeline? Do you think it's going to be a long, drawn-out affair? Do you think they're going to try to get this thing pushed through
it's pretty much. It's already pushed through. It's pushed through. It was signed in June, and starting January 1, they're going to start processing these claims. What I'm advising now is let's get the claim in, and the VA will hold it till January 1, and you'll be in the system.
Yeah.
And they'll just start processing them. And these claims are fairly easy to process. There's not once they establish that you was in the area that you stated, you was on the ship within the 12 nautical miles, and they have the ship list. They know every vessel that was within that area, and they have a list of all the records from those ships that talks about the personnel. So they'll be able to track everything. And the DD-214 will state clearly, I was on the USS Blue Ridge, or I was on this battleship. And you can say, well, here I am, and here's the date, and here your log showed that this vessel was in these waters on this date. It's, okay, there's not a lot to question. So it goes just like your presumptives. All you got to do is be diagnosed with it, have it on the list of presumptives, and the VA says, okay, we're good. Let's get this taken care of. And they start. It's not going to go away. It's there just like your benefits are there. They will never change that presumptive list other than to add to it. So it's going to be around a while. But like all VA benefits, they rarely advertise what's coming down. It's up to the veteran to educate himself and know what benefits he would be entitled to by coming to either an office such as mine, calling the state IDVA, with researching on the internet. You have to be aware of what's out there for you. And once you start opening these up and looking into what's out there, you'll see there's quite a bit of benefits for our veterans.
Well, I think we're really fortunate that, not because you're sitting there, that we have a very proactive service office that veterans can call. And they know they're going to get something done. You know, sometimes I think a lot of that has to, I've heard some stories about other counties, I'm going to say, that have had trouble with the service officer. And I always tell them to call you.
And we do. We get veterans from other counties calling in. But the bottom line is between Wayne County government and the city of Richmond, with the joint efforts into providing personnel for this office to better serve our veteran population, we do a pretty good job. We pretty much,
I think so.
We have taken the office from a limited of 29 hours a week, and we've got it pretty much up to a 40-hour week with 2 personnel in there. Of course, we fluctuate our hours because we're both, we have limited hours that we're able to work, but we make it work and we get it done. and our veterans get a lot better service down in that office, and which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And we all know how veterans
Yeah.
are. We're just a bunch of cranky old guys anyway.
That's all.
And it's a good thing we staff it with a couple other cranky old guys, and we all just kind of get along.
So how is enrollment going now with the VA and in general, the medical part of it with the younger veterans? Are you seeing more younger guys coming in?
Unfortunately, our GDX just came out for Wayne County this year, and it was kind of a setback. I was kind of sad to see it, but we have our medical expenditures in Wayne County has dropped $1.7 million from this time last year.
Man.
We have had a big decrease as far as veterans passing in service-connected veterans this year. And it's across the state. Across the whole state of Indiana, the veteran population has dropped tremendously. And we're not exempt from like any other county, but for the most part, every county in the state, not every, but the majority has lost in veteran population. Their VA spending has gone down because that is the national trend. Our Vietnam-era veterans are passing. It's getting into, we're on the decline of these service-connected veterans. Our younger veterans that are just coming out, you know how it is when we're younger, we generally, we lace up our boots and we go on because we got a family to feed and,
That's right.
and this and that, so we don't really focus on the benefits. And just like our female veteran population, they're busy working, taking care of the household and the family and doing the stuff that moms do with the children, and they tend not to do stuff for themselves.
Yeah, and
So
it's
we're
hard
missing out on that.
Well, I think sometimes with the health insurance, and I correct me if I'm wrong with this, the health insurance is if I work at someplace and I got health insurance, and my spouse and kids, if you will, need insured, I can't use the VA as my primary. I have to buy in that insurance. I have to buy it for myself. Buy into that program in order to pick up the spouse and kids and all that. I think that's right.
On the retiree side,
No, I'm talking about just on health insurance in general for these young veterans. You know.
Oh yeah, they
The
do.
young guy, in fact, Ron gave me a 1010 EZ, one of the forms he has to fill out because he's a Marine, okay?
There we go.
But he said he was told when he got out that because he was not actually active duty, he couldn't apply for VA benefits. So here we got a young man that's a Marine, deployed twice, even though he wasn't a National Guard outfit. He was deployed twice to Iraq. So I said, man, that would qualify you just right away. If you was in Iraq, especially twice, there's no reason in the world. So he's in the process of getting that form filled out so I can turn it in.
Well, good.
And hopefully
Have him complete it and get a hold of me.
Yeah, hopefully
And
he'll
long
get
and
it.
short of it is, the VA's not going, and where we get into, a lot of our younger veterans, they'll be entitled to VA benefits simply because the VA gives them all 5 years of VA coverage immediately after their discharge.
Yeah.
So they've got 5 years of free medical to talk about potential problems that are arising with some mental health issues or say some other physical injuries that they sustained while they was in, but it's just now starting to get worse. So they give them a good sized window to take care of, but their families are not included. So more times than not, these younger veterans say, hey, I got a couple kids and a wife. Yeah, I can be covered under insurance, but my family needs coverage as well. So they'll take the insurance from the private sector through their employment, and so that their family's covered.
So what happens after the 5 years?
It falls off. If they've had no claims, let me put it this way, it will go down several paths. One will be either the veteran is A-OK and he's making good money and he doesn't need VA benefits anymore, so he goes off on his own path as far as he can afford his own health insurance and he's provided insurance. Say the veteran has been identified as having a service-connected injury. He then, in fact, now is enrolled and he's in the VA for as long as he has that disability. And these disabilities generally don't go away. When you get a disability, it may improve, but a disability, more times than not, is going to remain with you for the rest of your life.
Service connected,
Right. Say, I mean, it's just like if a veteran gets diagnosed with a knee injury and his range of motion is so that he's entitled to, say, a 20 or 30% disability rating because he just can't get up and down or can't maneuver like the average man his age. If that veteran has a knee replacement, then therefore all his mobility issues just went away, so that would go down. But that does not mean he doesn't have other.
Oh, I'm not going to get my knee operated.
You gotta leave it like it is.
I'm going to leave it like it is.
Well,
You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right, Ron. You're old enough. You won't have troubles about what they do.
It goes to what I was saying, though. We have a very proactive Veteran Service Office that is involved in this stuff, because a lot of guys, young guys especially, they get busy working, they get busy doing other stuff, and they don't even think about that. You know, when you're 25, nothing can bother you.
But
you know,
another thing too with these guys, they don't have that, I don't know, brotherhood connection like we've had to the VFW and Vietnam Veterans Association. You know, they don't. We don't have a main source to get to them.
Maybe, and I'll tell you how it was when I got out. It wasn't that I didn't. When I took this job, I was unaware of what the American Legion, the VFW, the AMVETS, the DAV, how proactive they are in veteran benefits and making sure veterans are treated right in this country. I had no idea how the whole process worked. Once I educated myself and I seen how this works, I thought, you know what, that's a good deal. Whereas if I was a young man and I would have known, hey, the VFW, DAV, all these organizations are doing stuff that is going to come back to benefit you possibly someday, and it's for veterans, I would have got more active as a younger man. But as a younger man, I had kids to raise, I had jobs I had to get done. I went to work. I didn't necessarily. I was married, so I didn't go out to social drink with my buddies. I just kind of I went to work and I come home and I did my thing. And I think if we could get the conversation out there about what these organizations do, I think you'll see a lot more younger veterans saying, "Hey, I can buy into this program." And even though I might not make it down there, sign me up. I'll do my part, because that's the way we are. We're kind of team players, and that's what sets veterans apart from the regular population. We understand about teamwork and how everybody has to do their job.
That's right.
Because if you're not doing your job, somebody else is going to have a harder job to do.
That's right. And the
to pick up your pieces as well. So that's not what we do.
You got to really push that agenda. I mean, that's what you just said is something. I mean, I never thought in my life I'd be involved in the VFW and different organizations like that to really try to push the agenda to get young ones to come in, because they just don't want to do that. They just think
and they don't
the
have time
VFW is just a
either.
bunch of old men sitting around smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee.
Tell a war story,
you tell war stories.
Drinking coffee.
They don't really realize or something else. But you know, it's when you if you get to like the VFW newsletter and you see where they've donated several $1,000s to different birthright and different places here in town. They
and you
really
look at the
do
mechanics
something
behind these organizations. You see that they do a lot of good for a lot of people.
That's exactly right.
And although you may have two small children at home and a wife that's not going to tolerate you hanging out at the bar with your buddies much, I would have still done my part and bought a membership yearly. I wouldn't have minded the $20-$30. It wouldn't be no big deal.
Right.
And that's the moral to the story.
Yeah.
Well, it's evolving, and you know as well as I mean, the service clubs, whether they're Legion or American Legion or VFW or anything, all of that's evolving. All of that's changing. But somebody has to pick that ball up and carry it, because both in our town, both the Legions and the VFWs and the Marine Corps League, all of those guys are getting older, and somebody has got to carry that, or you'll just simply see the clubs closing because they can't operate. I mean, they have to make money.
We got to get to the younger vets.
And somehow nobody's been able to hit that magic yet. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's been kicked
I think
around.
blasting social media, man.
That's what I'm a firm believer. Just like VA benefits, there's so many benefits out there that they're not aware of. It just needs to get put out there where you see it. If you see it once or twice a month, it eventually becomes the norm and becomes something that you rely on to say, hey, let me check into this.
That's right.
Let's,
You got to buy into these programs.
Hit Facebook, handbook, footbook, that book.
Share with share with the veterans
That's
about
right,
the VA
that's
benefits,
right.
and that's one thing I do. I will ask veterans constantly, hey, introduce myself and say,
Yeah.
got anything going on that possibly I could help you with, and I actually get a lot of veterans that I get able to help just by walking up and shaking their hand and introducing myself and saying, tell me about your problems, and they have no problem telling you about your problems.
Give us a 1 minute on workforce development this month, October 25th. Give us a 1 minute spiel on that.
That's a good program they got going on. I enjoy myself every time I go to that. They do Work One does a great job. I can't say enough good about it. I would invite everybody to come on out and tour it and go through, get you some information, meet and greet people, and see what's going on. Yeah, get you something to eat and just kind of get out there and do something. Even if we get into the veterans, they ain't necessarily looking for employment. But it's not necessarily all about employment. It's about benefits.
Right.
You'll have the IDVA be there, I'll be there.
Right.
Different organizations will come in that just maybe, they're looking for somebody, but again, this is a benefit you would be entitled to. All you got to do is comply. Right. It's get out a resource.
It's a good time. That's October 25th.
At
10 to 2.
At the Raper Center?
At the Tom Raper Center, Wayne County.
Before we go, one more time. Blue Water, because that was our main thing. The Blue Water veterans.
Veterans, right. If you know of anybody that was in the Vietnam era and was aboard the Navy vessels, be it Coast Guard, naval personnel, or there's actually Army and Marines that were stationed aboard these vessels that never hit boots on ground due to what their MOS was, what their jobs were, the responsibilities attached to that unit. Make sure you take a good look at the presumptive list for Agent Orange exposure and share that information with them and say, hey, because the big one is ischemic heart. That's just heart disease. They found out that you Vietnam era veterans have an accelerated rate of heart disease, so therefore they said, hey, there's a connection here.
All right.
We got to shut down.
So folks, if you know anybody that may even remotely be applicable to this, let them know. Come see Pete.
Come see me.
We'll get it straight.
And
All right.
We'll get it started.
Hey, we got to get out of here.
We're done.
Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.